Madam President, I come out to the floor this afternoon to speak against an amendment that's being offered by my colleague, Senator Coburn. I know he was on the floor earlier today explaining that amendment, and I know that my colleague from Texas was just out here making general remarks about the Violence Against Women Act and its reauthorization. And I'm here to continue the debate and to make sure that it's clear to my colleagues that, make no mistake, a vote for the Coburn Amendment is a vote against Native American women. That is because the amendment would strip the bill of provisions that are intended to bring about a better justice to women who have been the victims of domestic violent crimes on Indian reservations. Now, many people who have been out here on the floor have been talking about the breakdown in our political system, and somehow this is about partisan politics. Well, I can assure my colleagues that this is an issue that many women in the United States Senate have been scratching their heads saying, why is it that the Violence Against Women Act and the Trafficking Act, of Human Trafficking Act, have both been stymied by various people in both the House and the Senate, crimes that basically are mostly perpetrated against women. Why aren't these resolved and passed and clarity given to local officials and partners so that we can carry out a better justice and help so many women in the United States of America? For Native American women, they are raped and assaulted at 2.5 times the national average. That is, more than 1 in 3 Native American women will be raped in their lifetime, and 3 in 5 will suffer from domestic assault. So murder is the third leading cause of death among Native American women. However, less than 50% of the domestic violence cases in Indian country are prosecuted because of a gap in our legal system. So this isn't about politics. This isn't about, a debate on what is, a good way to, win votes somewhere in America. This is about the life and death of women who need a better system to help prosecute those who are committing serious crimes against them. So my colleagues can take question maybe to the solution that's been provided here, but as many of my colleagues have said in the past, they can't own the facts. They can have their opinion. And I am here to tell you that this underlying bill does protect the constitutional rights of non-Native Americans who commit these crimes on tribal reservations. We are consulting with the Department of Justice, who did an elaborate study and analysis of exactly how to make sure that the gap in the federal system that currently doesn't provide a prosecutor, doesn't provide a judge, doesn't provide a court on every section of land in the United States of America, will be represented in a judicial partner that does guarantee the civil liberties of United States citizens and are protected in both the ability to have a fair trial and to have that trial basically appealed to a federal court. So what we have here is 2 or 3 Republican administrations solicitor generals who basically have said, these rights remain with Native Americans and the federal government, and that the last Solicitor General said, quote, "The policy of leaving Indians free from state jurisdiction and control is deeply rooted in our nation's history." But this is about a federal partnership on making sure that a federal law is upheld. So if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to say we're going to provide a federal prosecutor and a federal court system and, on every reservation or close to every reservation across America, okay, great. My point is, if you think you're rooting out crime in America and you are letting a civ happen in Indian country, you are not rooting out crime. You are sending a signal to people that this is an easy place to go. You want to sex traffic women? Go to tribal reservations. You want, to escape the law and not worry about violent behavior? Then go to tribal reservations. That's what you're saying to people. You're saying this is the place where you can escape the law. And we're trying to close that gap. And so this is not something that has been done at sleight of hand. This is something that has been given much, much thought by the Department of Justice. And so I'll remind my colleagues that it was one of our former colleagues, Senator Sam Ervin of North Carolina, who basically at congressional hearings and got a new Civil Rights Act passed to grant every American the same Bill of Rights afforded to non-Indian defendants in a tribal court. And those rights included the Miranda rights and trial by jury and right to counsel and right to confront the accuser and right to habeas corpus. So all of these things are actually in the tribal system today. They're part of what is called the Indian Civil Rights Act, and they affect Native Americans. This legislation, my colleague Senator Cornyn said that these civil liberties to U.S. citizens are not included. They're included. They're included in Section 904 on page 182. Those same civil liberties are called out in this bill, Senate Bill 47, the Reauthorization of the VAWA Act, are called out specifically for non-tribal U.S. citizens. So in that court system, both tribal members and non-tribal members are protected by the same civil liberties and are protected in their ability to have an appeal to federal court. So I'm not sure what my colleagues are referring to. If I'm missing some point, I would love to hear about it. But these safeguards were built into the system because this is such an egregious problem that we have to fix. So we're asking Indian country and tribal courts who can meet these same criteria. If a tribal court can't provide a legal counsel to a defendant, if they can't follow these same things, then no, you're not going to be tried under a tribal court system. But what we are trying to do is to make sure that the case, as that was mentioned in the New York Times today, of a woman who was battered and beaten by a partner so many times, but basically was never arrested and tried because it was all on tribal reservation, but then when he showed up at her work site with a gun to kill her, and only because an employee pushed her out of the way is she here today, something could be done. And what we're trying to say is let's close that gap and let's protect civil liberties. So I want to be clear to my colleagues. The civil liberties that are protected under this Senate bill, the civil liberties protections of due process, no unreasonable search or seizure, no double jeopardy, a right to counsel, not compelled to testify against yourself, the ability to get a speedy trial, the right to trial by jury, the right to confront a witness, the right of habeas corpus, and the right to remove to federal court if the rights are violated. That's all in Senate Bill 47 as it relates to non-Native Americans. Those are the rights that are going to be protected. That's what we're passing in this legislation. So we shouldn't strip out this provision. We should move forward with what has been a discussion about how to partner and uphold federal law in the most efficient, cost-effective manner possible. And I would say in conjunction with what has been federal law and determination about tribal sovereignty and issues by many Solicitor Generals, by many Supreme Courts, by many individuals who've looked at the situation. Now, you can decide you don't trust Indian country. You can say, I don't trust this tribe, or I don't trust this. If that's what, then come to the Senate floor and say that. Say that you don't believe that they can bring about justice in their courts, if that's what you mean. But under this statute, they will absolutely have to, and they absolutely have to today for every tribal member that comes before that court. And so they will be required to uphold those same issues for non-Native Americans as well. And so I would say to my colleagues that at this epidemic, and believe me, I want to get the Violence Against Women Act passed. I want to get this human sex trafficking bill out of the hands of the House of Representatives and passed. I know my colleagues are maybe trying to attach some of that here, and I would encourage us to pass both of these. These are epidemics in America, and this is about getting creative solutions. But let's not, create, if I'm wrong about the facts and details about civil liberties, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I would like my colleagues to vote against the Coburn Amendment, which strikes these provisions, and pass this legislation so we can move on and get a final bill that protects women all across America, whether they are tribal members or not. But clearly, let's not ignore the statistics and the gap that are showing us that we need to do something very important to make sure that all women, including Native American women, no longer suffer these statistics that are just unbearable in the United States of America. So, Madam President, I hope that our colleagues will turn down the Coburn Amendment and vote for final passage on this legislation.